Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today we are going to have a look at what's inside this box.
Oh great, here comes the thing where Herbert pretends it isn't plain obvious from looking at the box.
I would never do that, but just to state the obvious, this is a 35th scale plastic kit that, if all goes well, should nicely build up into a Crusader Mark III from border models. I mean, it's always going to be from border models, it's not going to suddenly be an Airfix kit if we build it wrong.
Nobody believes that's going to happen, Herbert.
You never know. Anyway, inside the box, we find a bunch of stuff. I didn't bother counting the sprues because I can't count higher than 3. The number of sprues isn't really important though. As you can see, the sprues, and more importantly, the parts on the sprues look rather good. As you would expect on a tank like this, there's a bunch of bolts and rivets and things like that, and these are represented here quite nicely. I'm not going to measure them or anything, but they seem like they're in scale and not oversized like you do see on some kits. Though they are big enough that they should catch paint quite nicely, and you should be able to get some nice weathering and wear around these when it's time to paint. I've never built a border models kit before, so I've got no idea if this is typical of their quality, but I think this is a very well made kit. The parts are neatly cast, and there doesn't seem to be too much in the way of mould lines. That's not to say there are none, but they're not prominent. Obviously if I do come across any issues, I'll talk about them in the build video, but I've not seen anything major here on the sprues, and everything seems to be where it should be. This sprue here, of which there are 2, has some wheels and wheel accessories, like tracks.
Are tracks really an accessory, Herbert?
Maybe? It looks like there's only one long length of track here, but there is a bag with quite a few links in it that we'll see later. These parts, unsurprisingly, look good. I probably don't need to tell you that each time a sprue looks good. They're pretty consistent, so they all look good. I'm just waffling while we look at the parts, really. Here we have a bunch of turrety parts. Looking at all of the other parts, I'm a bit surprised that the turret top is mostly one part. Not that I'm complaining, of course. Having it made up of multiple parts would just mean more chances for me to mess it up. Having the turret top as a single part doesn't seem to have resulted in any lack of detail either. Those rivets look great. Here are some more hull parts. These large parts are the lower outer hull. There's also various tools and stowage box parts and things like that, and all of it looks rather good. Those outer lower hull parts go onto this, the inner lower hull part, I guess you might call it. I kind of prefer this design, even though you do have to glue the hull sides and ends on. This single piece will greatly help in making sure that everything is aligned properly, I assume. That should mean that the rest of the build is also nice and neat and goes together properly. Obviously it will be me building this, so there is a good chance of mistakes being made, but this should reduce that chance. And here's that bag of track links I mentioned. There sure are a lot of them, and I'm kind of apprehensive about this. They might actually be really nice and go together easily, and I do hope that is the case, and even if that is the case, these will definitely take a while to put on. That's okay really, it's probably a pretty mindless task, so I'll just watch something entertaining and get through it that way. So this model technically has link and length tracks, but it does seem to be mostly link. At least they're not the dreaded rubber band tracks. These are, well, I don't know for sure, but I suspect they may have something to do with putting the tracks together. I don't want to form an opinion on this before actually using them, that would be kind of silly, but it does make me moderately nervous. It also makes the carpet monster drool. I can hear it. For those polycap aficionados out there, you know who you are. There's a whole bunch of polycaps here. These are probably mostly for wheels, but some of them could also be for the main gun. Who can say?
The instructions can say.
Quiet you. There are clear plastic lenses for the headlamps. Not much to say about these. They're clear and plastic, and that's pretty much what you want in clear plastic parts. I suppose you do also want them to be shaped the correct way, and it looks like these are that. A metal gun barrel is included, and that's always a nice touch, and this one looks pretty good. There does also seem to be a plastic gun on the sprue with the turret parts, but I'm not sure if that's the same gun or what. Clearly I've not read through the instructions, I'm just looking at what's in the box here. At any rate, this is a nice metal gun, and I'll almost certainly be using it. It looks really good, so why not? Photo etch. Certainly not my favourite thing to work with, but there doesn't seem to be anything too tiny, and thus extra fiddly, on these frets, so I'm sure it won't be too bad. I'll try not to complain too much when it comes time to put these parts on. Here are the decals. There's not a whole lot in the way of variety here, but I suppose this kit is intended to build a specific tank, and not just whichever of a number of Crusaders you might like. Having never built a border kit, I can't speak to the quality of their decals, but they do look good. And here's the instruction booklet. I think this looks pretty good. You get a sprue guide on the front, which is helpful if you need to figure out if something's missing or not. You also get some information and a couple of pictures, which I always appreciate. Who doesn't like looking at the pictures? And of course, the instructions themselves. These look simple enough to understand and follow. Obviously, as I've not started building this kit, I don't know if there are going to be any issues with the instructions, and I'm sure I'll probably want some different angles here and there, because I always seem to want that anyway, but they do look pretty decent, and it looks like things are laid out in a sensible manner. Of course, any issues I have, I'll let you know in the build video. The last couple of pages have some painting and marking guides, and of course these are basic because a full painting guide would just take up way too much space, but these are good for a starting point. Then we have some advertising, and on the back, a nice outline of a Crusader. A nice extra that came with this kit is a cutting mat. I believe this is a limited edition thing. I mean, it says so right on it, but I do think this is a nice little inclusion. I mean, this side isn't all that exciting, but turn it over, and bam, a Crusader cutting mat. Perfect for cutting Crusaders, I guess. I don't think I'll actually use this. If you've seen my cutting mat, it's kind of messed up from not only cutting, but also spillages, particularly glue, and it would be a shame to ruin this. Anyway, that's what's in the box. It looks like a pretty good kit to me, and I've actually had this sitting on my shelf for a while. I picked it up from a model exhibition last year. I've just had other things come up and haven't really gotten around to it yet. But I will be starting on this sometime soon. Not right away, and I don't have an exact start date yet, but I will be live streaming the build, as with pretty much all of the models I build. I've decided to stream this build on Monday mornings, which is of course local time for Queensland, Australia. It may be evening or Sunday for you. Anyway, head on over to my Twitch channel, which is linked in the description, and eventually this will appear in the schedule. Or keep an eye on the announcements channel on my Discord server. I think this is going to be a fun build, and hopefully I don't have to press the "Oh dear, Herbert made a mistake again" button, or the carpet monster attack button for that matter. Anyway, it's going to be fun, so I hope you will join me. As is tradition, once the kit is built, there'll be a video here on YouTube showing how it all goes together, so keep an eye out for that too. I think maybe I've done enough waffling now, I'm starting to lose my voice, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section below. And if you've not already done so, why not subscribe here on YouTube for the low price of absolutely nothing? Ringing that notification bell is also free. But if you do have the means, and you want to help a Herbert Erpaderp do Herbert Erpaderp things, and see my videos a bit early, consider becoming a patron. You can find links to Patreon and all of my other things like Discord and social media in the description below. And, as always, I shall return soon, so until then, be excellent to each other, have a fantastic day, and thanks for watching. Farewell.